Part 33. I think this tyrant is not a heartless person. What do you say? That was actually rescued by concubine Wen? And brought back the Yunhai palace? In the Shuanghua pavilion, Noble Rong looked at the eunuch who came to report the news in disbelief. After a long time, she slapped her slender jade hand on the small Kong table, gritted her teeth and said, "What is he relying on? Do you really think that you are a noble concubine with a high status? Well, you didn't show anything before, but now you are pampered and proud. And your claws are getting longer and longer. It is not enough to instruct the prince to go to the Ningxiang palace to snatch people from concubine Yan. And now even my people have to take care of it. Does he really think that with the emperor's favor, he is qualified to be the enemy of all the people in the harem?" The palace maid beside her saw that she was angry, and hurriedly stepped forward and whispered, "Mother is angry. Beware of being angry, for that concubine Wen, this is not worth it." Noble Rong sneered, "What is a bad body? If it continues like this, I don't know when. Maybe I will be bullied to death." When the words fell, she stood up and paced a few steps on the ground, and after a while, she stood still and gritted her teeth and said, "I can't let that male fox spirit go on like this. I must think of a way to get rid of his good. Come here, prepare a sedan chair for me. I want to go to concubine Luo's place." The palace maid beside her felt a pang in her heart, knowing that this was the master who finally couldn't help but be angry and wanted to make a move. This time, if it was really the harem concubines joining forces. I was afraid that even if the male concubine had 1,000 hands and 1,000 eyes, he would not be able to resist such an attack. While thinking, Noble Rong changed her clothes as the casual and accompanied her to concubine Luo. Entering the palace gate, I was invited into the warm pavilion of the side hall. And I saw that there were already several concubines sitting in the house, among which concubine Li Qingyu was also here. Noble Rong's heart understood that this harem was originally the most well-informed place, not to mention that it was not a secret that Pu Qiutai saved Chuntao. And now it is not unusual for everyone to get the news. "So," she said in a deep voice, "the ladies are all here. It seems that I also heard the letter. Now I am in a humble position. And I can only stare in vain if I am bullied, but I don't know that if this development continues, in the future in this harem, will he be allowed to cover the sky with one hand? At that time, I will stop, but I don't know what kind of good life you can have." As soon as the words came out, the audience was silent. And the concubines who were originally gloating in their hearts were also shocked at this time. They couldn't help but set their eyes on Shu Ruolan and Li Qingyu. They saw Shu Ruolan smile and said, "It's nothing, isn't it just a man? Although he is a concubine, as long as everyone works together, he can't reach the point of covering the sky with one hand. Although something happened to Noble Rong today, we can't take care of it. After all, the person was saved by the emperor and given to him by the emperor. But finally, this matter also gives us a wake-up call, so that we can understand the temperament of this concubine Wen. I'm quite happy in my heart. The way to survive in this harem has always been to protect oneself. I have never heard of a person who loves to meddle in matters and fight grievances. And he can still live to old age in a beautiful way." It was really a word to wake up the person in the dream, and all the concubines were all bright-eyed, but they didn't say anything. And they all secretly wondered in their hearts, but not. "We are really stupid, we didn't expect to go up here. The harem is here, the better the person, the faster he dies. The more concubine Wen has a good emperor's grace is not uncommon, but he still prefers to meddle in things. Who will die if he doesn't die?" In an instant, everyone had a plan in their hearts. And suddenly heard concubine Luo smile again. "Everyone is basically gathered here today. Even so, I have a proposal. To be honest, in the past years, although we were calm on the surface, who didn't have some small means in their hearts? It's just that now, the situation is different. Now we should abandon those past grievances. Sisters work together to get through this difficulty. If I make a big fuss, you just look at the emperor's now turned overbrand. You also know the status of that man in the emperor's heart. You ask yourself, if we are still as in the past, we are still scattered as before, but can we fight him? After concubine Luo finished speaking, concubine Li Qingyu took over the conversation and said solemnly, concubine Luo is right. At this time, we are forced to affront. Let concubine Wen continue to call for wind and rain like this, none of us have a way to live. You also know the emperor's temperament, that is the most lawless. Once I like it. It is not impossible to crown him as the queen, otherwise why would the prince be raised by him now? If then, we will be ants. As soon as everyone saw that the two highest-ranking concubines had expressed their positions, their hearts were also excited. Noble Rong said happily. It is just that the two ladies are far-sighted. As the saying goes, there is a lot of power. Let's unite together, but if you don't believe it, let a pedantic scholar from the previous dynasty be brought down, but now he is a saint. No matter what method he uses, he still has to be careful. Don't set yourself on fire. That's bad. Noble Rong's statement, others refused to lag behind, and expressed their determination. Concubine Luo and concubine Yan saw that everyone was talking, looked at each other and smiled. Concubine Luo nodded and said, that is the case, then let's say okay. At this time, everyone must work together, help and support each other. And never make those slanders and frames their own people, drag their legs and pull their arms. Let's be unanimous to the outside world. If one day, you can drive this male fox out of the harem, at that time, everyone has the ability and means, and then you can use it as you like. How about it? This can be said to be extremely straightforward. But it happened to be said in the hearts of the concubines. Everyone has been fighting with each other for so many years, who doesn't have an account in their hearts? Counting on the opportunity to deal with Pu Qiutai to laugh at the grudge, how can it be so easy? However, concubine Luo's proposal won the hearts of the people. The enemy is current. Personal grievances are put aside first, and when the enemy is put down, then regain the old accounts and calculate them separately. What a good thing, don't delay the two. At the moment, the plan was decided, so the dozen or so concubines in the harem got together to discuss how to use Pu Qiutai to save Chuntao and make some articles, and after discussing for a long time, the result was finally reached. Let's talk of Pu Qiutai. At this time, he didn't know that because of Xia Linxuan's arrogant grace, the harem concubines who had always been dark and vicious had decided to join forces to deal with him. He was polishing and revising the song, Yanghe Palace Word, at this moment, and wrote the last paragraph by the way. As soon as he dropped the last stroke, he heard the sound of footsteps outside, and then Chengxing broke in, and before he could speak, she knelt down with a plop, and said with tears, Mother, thank you. Thank you for saving Sister Chuntao. So many years, there are not many old people left in the previous dynasty. And only Sister Chuntao can come and go. The two of us are like sisters. You saved me, and today you saved her. You are our reborn parents, and we will go to the soup and fire for you in the future. And we will never give up. Pu Qiutai was stunned for a moment, then came to his senses, stood up and helped Chengxing, and said in surprise, there is such a coincidence? The palace maid I rescued today is the sister you said? Chengxing nodded and said, yes, she was sent to serve Noble Rong that day, just because she was silent. And she was an old person from the previous dynasty, so she was not allowed to be reused in the Shuanghua pavilion, but she didn't expect such an unwarranted disaster to happen today. If it wasn't for the timely rescue of the mother, she would. She really died. Pu Qiutai said with a smile. That's really good. The emperor has already given me Chuntao, and from now on, I will be relieved to have you and she serve Shanyan and Mingfang. How's the situation with Chuntao? Chengxing hurriedly wiped her tears and said, she has woken up, but her body is very cold. And she was really frozen before, otherwise she would have come to thank mother in person at this time. The doctor said that if she froze like this, a serious illness is inevitable, but fortunately, it can be prevented, and if she starts taking medicine now, this life can always be saved. Pu Qiutai nodded and said, in this case, what medicine do you need? You can go to Jing Lianghou to ask for it. You must not let Chuntao make a mistake, as you said. There are not many old people in this palace. When he said the last sentence, his voice couldn't help but be low. He looked down at the song, Yanghe Palace word, in a daze, and he felt sad for a while, and blinked vigorously, forcing back the tears. The master and servant were relatively speechless, and suddenly heard the voice of the Honglian outside. Mother, Eunuch Bei just came to deliver a message, saying that the emperor will arrive soon. And the slave and maid have already ordered the imperial dining room to put dinner here. What else do you have to say? Nope. Pu Qiutai came back to his senses and said to Chengxing, you go. Take good care of Chuntao. If there are not enough people, let Farong arrange 2 little palace maids for you to help, and I will take over the. Here, speaking of this, he couldn't help but smile bitterly, shook his head and said, once you enter the palace gate, it is as deep as the sea. Where do you have to be free? Don't say that the emperor is really a favor to you, but the more this happens, the more mother will become the target of public criticism. And you have to be very careful. Mother is kind-hearted. If this harem can have a master like you in power, it will be our servants, and we will also be stained a lot. At the very least. It's not like now, when you lost your life, you don't even have time to leave a last word. This precarious day, not a slave in the palace, you don't know the bitter fear at all. Sure enough. Is my broken body still of any use? Chengxing didn't know that her words touched the master's heart. She hurried here stopped, but Pu Qiutai's whole person was in a trance, and his heart, which was as quiet as a dry well, was cold and excited. Is Qiutai here to greet me? Tut tut, how dare you do this? Sure enough, I promised a little benefit. But the attitude was different. Just thinking about it, I heard a laughing voice, looked up. Xia Linxuan had already entered the door, came to him and naturally grabbed his shoulder. Took him into his arms, kissed him gently, and then let him go to the desk, picked up a few pieces of rice paper and smiled. Huh? Is this Yanghe Palace word done? Have you already retouched it? Well, okay, I'm going to put it away. That's the poem I made, I'll clean it up myself, and I won't bother the emperor. Pu Qiutai glared at Xia Linxuan, and was about to grab the paper. But His Majesty Emperor jerked to the side, and he pounced, and heard Xia Linxuan laugh and said, wait. I haven't read it yet. When I finish reading, it's not too late to put it away. Pu Qiutai no longer insisted, with his small body. If he still didn't give up, he would take the initiative to send it to Xia Linxuan for teasing. Sure enough. Seeing that he stopped moving, the tyrant was still a little disappointed, and grinned. Don't pounce on him? Actually, it's nothing. If Qiutai takes the initiative to give it to his arms, I can't ask for it. Pu Qiutai snorted coldly and turned his head. Xia Linxuan over there no longer joked, but concentrated on looking at the long poem, while reciting softly. Waiting to read the last 8 sentences. The Bidian is desolate and the new wooden arch, and the pedestrians still know the Jiaoyi tomb. Wheat rice holly asked to falsely claim as one's own. and the slanting sun vines buried the remnants. The north wind of Jiaochu pine is morning, and the spring in the south is deep at night. Mo plays the song of the heavenly treasure of neon clothes. And the Jingyang Palace falls in the autumn acacia. He sighed deeply, then put down the paper, and was speechless for a while. What's wrong? Pu Qiutai added a hint of curiosity. Could it be that this domineering king would also sigh because of these few poems? How is this possible? I am a native of the Qing dynasty, and the pain of losing the country is unforgettable. So there will be such sadness, but Xia Linxuan is a young king. How can he experience this pain of losing the country when he is in high spirits? It's a little embarrassing. These words are too sad. But I heard Xia Linxuan sigh, and then walked over, straightened Pu Qiutai's collar, and said in a deep voice, I know that your last few sentences are to express your grief and regret for the small court's lack of progress and absurdity, and it has nothing to do with me. But the change of dynasty is the trend of the times. I see. Pu Qiutai was silent, knowing that what Xia Linxuan said was also from the bottom of his heart. No matter what you beat the country, it would be in vain if you didn't live at that time. If your children and grandchildren don't fight anymore, it is impossible for your ancestors to jump out of the grave and turn things around. Think about it, this is indeed helpless. No wonder even this arrogant king can't help but say that he is embarrassed and afraid. Just thinking about it, he was picked up again by the cold, and listened to Xia Linxuan and said with a smile, My beloved concubine can even deceive people with poetry, I am confused. Since the change of dynasties cannot be changed, but now I still think about what will happen in a few hundred years. As long as I do a good job as a son of heaven, I will have to be happy and chic for decades, and even if it floods after death, it is still important to have fun in time. Pu Qiutai was almost not pissed off. This is the bastard's sigh and fear? The moment of half a pillar of incense is not yet, and he has figured it out? How can this temperament be described by a heartless person?